Budget season is one of my favorite times of the year. Long before I became mayor, I majored in finance at Hampton University. While working in investment banking and later as city treasurer, I managed a budget of millions of dollars, increased credit ratings, and oversaw hundreds of workers. As mayor, I still do these same things, but now I work collaboratively with Comptroller Green and the President of the Board of Aldermen Green to pass a budget that reflects the things that you care about. Earlier today, the City of St. Louis Budget Director, Paul Payne, presented my proposed budget to the Board of Estimate and Apportionment. And now, I'm here to present my budget to you, the people of St. Louis. You deserve to know how your tax dollars are being spent, and this is just one of the budget books for this year. Just this book. This is 1, 2, and 3. There are 3 budget books. They're massive documents, and creating it takes a massive undertaking. So I won't bore you with every small detail. Instead, I'll give you a high-level overview. While we're taking a fiscally responsible approach this year, we are not cutting any essential funding. Again, while we are taking a fiscally responsible approach this year, we are not cutting any essential funding. With that in mind, tonight we're going to do 3 things. 1, I'll give you a brief overview of where the money comes from and where it goes. 2, I'll highlight a few parts of the budget that I'm particularly excited about this year. And last but not least, I'll take questions from you. So drop your questions in the comments at any time, and I'll answer them at the end. Again, thank you for tuning in. As I mentioned, the budget was shared today with the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, also called the Board of E&A, or as we like to call it, SHE&A. E&A is made up of myself, Comptroller Darlene Green, and President of the Board of Aldermen, Megan Green. E&A works together to approve the proposed budget, which will then be presented to the Board of Aldermen. The Board of Aldermen has until June 30th to vote the budget out. If they fail to vote on the budget before then, it'll automatically go into effect on July 1st. This year, the city's budget is a little over $1.3 billion. 40% of that, a little over 40% of that comes from the general fund, which this year is $580.9 million. Most of the general fund comes from the earnings tax, property tax, and sales tax, with a few other taxes and fees included. I want to be transparent and share that these figures are subject to change as the Missouri State Legislature is exploring options to eliminate or reduce the earnings tax, which will significantly impact our budget. The earnings tax is applied to people who live and work in the city or work in the city. If you live or work in the city, your tax dollars help fund a big part of this budget. Another piece of the budget, approximately $445.1 million, comes from a fund we call special revenue or local use tax or grants that come from the state and federal governments. And the final piece of the budget comes from enterprise funds, which are entities funded by their own revenues, like the city's water division, the parking division, and the airport. Enterprise funds make up the remaining $308.1 million of the budget, but they keep the money they earn they generate for the expenses of their respective divisions. Between the general fund and the enterprise funds, our budget is north of $1.3 billion. It's important to note here that this doesn't include ARPA or RAM settlement money. Those are separate one-time funds and don't factor into the annual budget. And you can visit if you want to know how ARPA money is being spent, you can visit the ARPA dashboard online, and my team is dropping that link in the comments as well. So at the end of every fiscal year, if we have surplus funds or money unspent in the budget, it's split into 2 categories. Half goes into the reserve fund for emergencies, and the other half to the capital budget for large expenditures like replacing vehicles in our fleet, streets, or heavy repair equipment, or just to name a few categories. As we go through, you'll hear me refer to spending in certain departments that come from the capital budget. This year, the capital budget is $81.1 million. You'll also hear me talk about ward capital, which is a separate pot of funds that the alderpeople control that goes to specific capital projects in their wards. And a majority of ward capital is spent on streets, and the balance of that as of March 31st is approximately $23 million. Now that we know where the budget funding comes from, I want to talk about where it goes. There are a lot of different things to fund each year, and I'm going to highlight a few key areas that are things that you can see and feel in the city of St. Louis. So let me start with public safety. Public safety includes police, fire, EMS, and the other divisions that have helped make the city make great strides in improving public safety. Roughly 30% of the budget of our entire budget is dedicated to public safety. Our police and fire departments will not see an increase or decrease this year, and they will stay roughly the same. We're allocating $9 million in permanent funding to the Office of Violence Prevention this year. The Office of Violence Prevention was initially funded by ARPA dollars with established partnerships of more than 30 organizations focused on crime and prevention and intervention, and has served thousands of residents since its opening. In the budget, we funded the Office of Violence Prevention using use tax funds, which makes this a permanent part of our budget. This way, they can continue the work of prevention and intervention year after year. We're also making improvements to health care in our jail at the City Justice Center. Remember, we shifted $2 million in funding last year to support the hiring of a chief medical officer and other support staff to improve healthcare oversight at the facility. This funding is now under work at the jail under the leadership of the Department of Health. Regarding MSI, or known by many of you as the workhouse, let me reiterate what I've said before. We will not use this facility as a jail in the future, and there's no funding in the budget for that purpose. It's time to reimagine the workhouse. What could we do with a 30-acre space if we take down the fencing, remove the guard towers, and completely repurpose the buildings? As we complete our studies and talk to experts in the field, top of mind is the need for additional transitional housing. We continue to be inspired by the meaningful work at Jefferson Spaces and examples in Denver and Los Angeles on how tiny homes or even container homes supported by wraparound services can help unhoused residents move towards permanent housing. Now on to streets. About $11.3 million goes towards our street division, and a separate $11 million is allocated for ward capital improvements in the city's 14 wards. Ward capital funds are controlled and administered by your elected alderperson and can be used for capital improvements in the ward, such as street paving and sidewalk repair. If you have questions about street paving in your ward, contact your alderperson. On top of funding our streets department, this year an additional $7.6 million from the Capital Improvement Fund will go towards specific road and bridge projects like improvements on Kings Highway, Cass Avenue, and other important roads, and improving our ADA compliance at bus stops. In addition to what's laid out in the budget, we've invested over $48 million in ARPA funding towards street improvements. This will fund pedestrian safety improvements, ADA compliance, implementation of completed traffic studies, improvements to dangerous high crash intersections, and repaving our main thoroughfares, also known as our arterial roadways. And now on to affordable housing. We all feel the increased cost of living in St. Louis. Residents need greater access to affordable housing, and we need to conserve our existing housing stock. We are maintaining approximately $7.1 million in funding for the Affordable Housing Commission, which provides affordable and accessible housing to low-income residents, especially those earning 80% or below the area median income. We're also maintaining about $2.8 million in funding for housing conservation to preserve the quality of the city's housing stock and prevent neighborhoods from deterioration. Remember, this is only what's in our annual budget. My administration continues to spend $91 million in housing-related ARPA-funded programming for programs ranging from affordable housing production and preservation and homeownership fund to privately owned property stabilization. Since taking office, my administration is helping fund over 2,000 affordable housing units in the city. The Affordable Housing Trust Fund will receive $6.5 million this year, which is above the floor of $5 million. My administration remains committed to providing services for our unhoused residents. Approximately $3.2 million will go towards homeless services in the city. The city previously invested $37 million in ARPA funds for our unhoused residents to prevent them from losing their housing. Several city departments, including the Affordable Housing Commission, the Community Development Administration, and the St. Louis Development Corporation, are working on affordable housing projects to help those who need it most. In 2024, the Affordable Housing Commission tripled its annual awards, funding over 2,000 affordable units and new homes and moderate income families. This is partially funded by the $91 million investment of ARPA funds for housing stabilization programs, including housing production, affordable housing preservation. There's no secret that the region needs to be doing more to support unhoused residents and housing unstable households. That's why I'm leading the discussion on what our region needs to do together to address the housing affordability crisis. And also, don't forget to ask questions in the comments if you haven't thus far. Next, we want to highlight our budget for parks, recreation, and forestry. St. Louis young people deserve a place where they can go in the summer where they can play, that's free and safe, where they can just be a kid, which is why we are investing $6 million in new funding from the capital budget into improving parks and our rec centers. $1.5 million goes towards renovating city pools and putting up new fencing. Another $2 million is going to go for our HVAC systems at the rec centers, and we're investing $500,000 in removing dangerous trees on our streets. I want to also quickly highlight the investments we're making into Soulard Market. I love Soulard Market, and I hope you do too, and we know that it plays an important role in building a vibrant small business community. We're adding $1 million in funding for upgrades. That totals $2.4 million in capital improvement funds. The Department of Health reflects a 14.5% increase to funding from the previous year. We fully funded the Behavioral Health Bureau in the amount of $5 million, and last year the Behavioral Health Bureau connected about 25 people per day to resources in the community. They also received an award from Better Family Life for making a difference on overdoses. We expect them to continue to help connect people to vital resources. And as we previously discussed, the Department of Health has been doing medical oversight at the Justice Center, and they've done outstanding work to stabilize the treatment of people in our care at the Justice Center. And we have fully funded this so they can continue to provide contractually provided medical care. Whew, all right, almost done. We also funded animal control. We're increasing funding for animal care and control so they can maintain facilities and services, and appropriating an additional $1 million for their facilities. And we're providing $500,000 for communicable disease control. We'll help vaccinate, prevent, and promote public health when it comes to communicable diseases. Let's take some questions. Connor?
Mayor, you announced a hiring freeze a few weeks ago. What positions and departments does that affect?
That only affects non-essential departments. So we consider essential departments as fire, police, EMS. Those are essential. Some positions in our streets department, but it affects non-essential positions. So if you were in the process of being hired before March 29th, you will continue to be in that process. So you may receive a call for an interview, but if you check the website at the Department of Personnel, you'll see who that affects.
And just to be clear, if a job is currently posted on the city's website, we're still hiring for it?
Yes, if a job is currently posted on the city's website, we are still hiring for it. So there are jobs that we are not hiring for anymore, but again, if there are essential positions, they are still listed on our website. What's happening with the RAMS money? Well, the RAMS money is sitting in an account and earning interest as it should. We have the RAMS money does not have a time limit on when it can be spent, but ARPA money does. ARPA money has to be spent by December 31st, 2026. So we are focused on spending every dime of ARPA money before we get to RAMS money.
And the last question here, earlier this year you released your public safety plan. How does that factor into the budget?
So the public safety plan that we released, which is also on the mayor's portion of the city's website, focuses on three main pieces: prevention, intervention, and enforcement. And we have been working with the chief, our new chief, Chief Tracy, as well as we called for a regional crime strategy, and that's called Save Lives Now, which includes all of the regional county execs from O'Fallon, Missouri to O'Fallon, Illinois, because we know that crime does not stop at our borders, and neither should our solutions. So we are working together to reduce homicides by 20% over the next 3 years through three methods: focused deterrence, cognitive behavioral therapy, and trusted messengers in the community.
All right, thank you so much, Mayor.
Any other questions out there?
Not that I see.
Good, I bored everybody to death. Thank you, everyone, and thank you for joining us. God bless.